So we're still in our series where we are introducing all of the conference staff members, and I'll remind you all that the conference is all of the members of all of the churches and all of our covenant partners that are affiliated with the United Church of Christ and located in the northern 2/3 of Illinois. So this is all of you, right? This is all of us. And our work together is to help support churches be stronger, being stronger together. And we have had a lot of staff changes over the last year, and it's important to know these are your staff. These are doing the work of the conference, which is which is of all of us. And we've had an opportunity to meet several folks. And today you get to meet Lynn Chinlin. Lynn is our support staff for operations. She might continue to be frustrated because there's the learning curve in the Illinois conference office. And she's been with us since June, but she has truly transformed the work of the operational work of the Illinois conference office. And those of you who have the opportunity to work directly with her recognize that front and center. So I'm going to let Lynn speak mostly for herself, but I want to say some kind words about that. Lynn is also a member at Lyonsville United Church of Christ, and brings that history. And we were impressed in her interview process about how she kept speaking. She wouldn't use these words, but she kept speaking of examples of how she brought order out of chaos. And I'm like, that is what we need in the Illinois conference office. And so, Lynn, we're so grateful for you being part of the team. And I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can just tell your approach to what your job is. And we'll have some time for questions and some conversation.
Okay. Thanks, Molly, for the introduction and for the kind words. Sometimes I feel like, the papers are, trying to get me, but I'm slaying the paper dragon. So yes, as Molly said, my title is support staff for operations. And first I want to kind of say, not in a negative way, but what it's not, which is it's a unique position. It's never existed before, this combination of responsibilities within the Illinois Conference. So I'm not an accountant, I'm not a bookkeeper, I'm not an office manager. There's a lot of ways that you could interpret this, I do, front end financial processing, but I'm not actually making, financial decisions. So there's just a lot of different parts to it. So, I'm one of 3 people here in the office, along with Naomi Ellis and Sarah Lorbach, and I think we're a pretty good team. And, we've all had a really steep learning curve. Naomi has been with the conference for a long time, but her role has changed. So, we're working out the communication kinks and everything, and I think it's getting better all the time. So, and also I'm like, I didn't grow up in the UCC, so I get to ask all the dumb questions that no one else wants to ask. And so, I've learned quite a bit, I've absorbed quite a bit, but in the beginning I was like, what does this mean? What is that? All the acronyms? I had no idea. So I kind of like being that person who's just like, hey, what's happening? Somebody translate for me. And part of what I do is I do work closely with Keith Clark-Hoyos, who is our contracted accountant. And so he's, giving me a lot of help and support and training. So he does actually a lot of the, actual payroll processing and check processing. So there's 3 parts to this support staff of operations position. The first part is personnel. So what that means, basically, I'm onboarding people, I'm offboarding people. So then I'm handling all the paperwork and all the details when we get a new staff member, and then also tying up all the loose ends when someone leaves the conference. So that could include, benefits, keys, policies and procedures, if they have a vehicle, all sorts of things. So I try to make that all pretty clear, tell them how how timesheets work and the payroll works, and you can go paperless with ADP, and just all these little things that you probably want to know about. You may not ask, you may ask. And offboarding, like, the reverse process, basically. Let's see. And then I also handle like benefit changes and questions. So people might have, a change in their life circumstance, or they want to, I guess, kind of like move funds around with like maybe Invesco or different things like that. So I make those things happen. And I'm also in charge of all the personnel files. And I, create them, I maintain them, I keep them confidential. I created like a new organizational system so that we at least had the same parts for each, employee, starting with the current employees, of course, and that, we could have a checklist and expect, hopefully, certain items to be in each folder, each file, so that we're not caught without having the necessary paperwork. The second part of, my role is properties. So that's not necessarily, like the property you would think of, in the office or whatever. It's the properties that the conference owns. So I attend the property committee meetings most of the time. That's a FAB subcommittee. And I just basically, help out with whatever the projects are, whatever's going on. We have developed, over the past several months, we've developed a checklist so that it will help the property committee discern, whether they want to accept a property that's being offered by a closed church, and actually have some, some little research and insight into it, so that, the committee's sure that it's a good choice to take this on, because it is a big responsibility. It comes with a lot of costs. It comes with a lot of headaches. What's the condition of the building, and so on. And then also, working with the people at the closed or closing church to get, the necessary documents and to transition everything, the utilities and all sorts of things. So you try to think of all these tiny little details, and the keys and the locksmiths and, and I'm not doing all that myself, but we're talking about, who's the primary contact person, who is basically taking the lead on connecting us to the church members, and what are we going to do? Do they have a van? Do they not have a van? Just like things that there were rumors of a van. There's no evidence of a van. Okay. What do we need to do to add it to our insurance policy, our larger master insurance policy, all sorts of things, Roger Dark can attest that when you're filling out this insurance, questionnaire, it's very lengthy, and they want to know all about, the history of the building and what features it has, and, does it have a sprinkler system? Probably not, all different things. So that's kind of interesting. And like, what else? Just a lot of just kind of, little things that come up. One of the first things that the committee asked me to do was look through all of our files and figure out what legal documents do we have for properties that we own. Do we have everything we need, and how will we get those? So since that time, we've obtained a lot of them through our law firm, and that helped fill in some of the holes. And then we know now, what we have, what we need to have, and some of the most vital records, just from the conference and maybe from some of the historical documents. We have a fireproof or fire resistant filing cabinet. So, if you find something really interesting and historical that's crumbling, we're going to put it in that cabinet. It is fascinating to see a lot of this stuff. And sometimes you have to do a lot of digging to figure out what land, actually is a parcel around the church, all sorts of different things like that. So the third and probably biggest part of my position is finance. So as I mentioned, it's front end financial processing. So things that cross my desk, all sorts of things. One of the biggest things is that I am paying invoices every week. So I'm using this nifty check request form. And I'm just mentioning that because you can use this too. I can send it to you if you email me, It's a fillable form online. And basically, you just put the date requested, payable to, the address of the vendor, the account number, things like that, and then you have to have it, you request at the bottom, and then we have to get it approved. So I'm doing this for every single bill that comes across my desk, except for the camps, but we have a different system with them. But basically everything else has to have one of these attached. Okay. So that's a lot of what I'm doing. I have a schedule worked out with Keith that I collect the, invoices by a certain day, and then I, upload them, and then he sees them. And then he actually produces the PDF of the checks. And then I print those out and we go from there. I get those signed and everything. So one of the things we've been working on is streamlining, the bank accounts, the financial paperwork, just consolidating things and just kind of saying, where are our accounts at and what's most logical, and are these, we have old checks from non-existent accounts, can we shred those and things. And Christine Vesely and Bob Poor have been very helpful with that, along with Larry McCure and Ernie Potter, just kind of saying, this doesn't need to be here. Let's make space. So that's been really good, just to get certain things out of, my visual, scope, I guess, so that I can concentrate on what is current. I also handle the deposits. So once a week, at least, I gather all of the checks that come in the mail directly to us, and I fill out a remittance form for each one. And this has codes on it that tell the bank where we want the money allocated. So it has our 5 for 5 offerings on there, other conference ministries, all sorts of things on there. And then there's also like a blank quadrant that you can fill in other things. So I do this all the time too. And then if the church, submits something and they don't know their church number or something up here, that's fine. I'll figure it out. And if I have questions, I usually just, call the church office or whoever signed the check, and we figure it out. So some people do mail donations directly to this lockbox address in Carol Stream, and that's fine. That's wonderful. If that happens and you have one of these and you fill it out and put it with the check, that's great. If you don't, and you maybe put it, just a note on the memo line, or include a little bit, of a clue, a little note, so that we know what your intention is. We want the money to go to the proper places. So that's pretty much what this is. Okay. So November, December, we had a lot of these, right? Because we had a lot of churches doing their year-end accounting and deciding how much that they could donate and giving to special funds. So that at that point I was sending, I was mailing out to the lockbox really frequently. I also handle the credit card reconciliations. So a lot of the conference staff, they have their own credit cards, and we give them, like, they comes in the mail, and I send them their own individual piece of the statement. And then we give them a turnaround time that we need, the credit cards and the coding back in order to process that. So, sometimes that's tricky, you have to bug people a little bit, but it works out usually. Let's see what else. Oh, okay. Along with that, then, so things come through the lockbox. We're winding down on using Arrays as software, but what has been happening is the donation acknowledgement letters, those actually pull information out of Arrays. And then that's how we generate the letters. And we've now caught up with all of 2021, I believe. So we did a huge batch that was like part of, I want to say mid 2021. And then we kept doing other batches. So our goal is to do that monthly. We want to be on top of it. We want people to feel appreciated, which they are. And, then we get some phone calls and folks say, this does not match our records. And we try to figure out what happened, and if we need to recode something or move it around, and how we can also communicate a little better about, their expectations. So sometimes it will have, unfortunately, outdated contact information, for example, at the top of the letter. So please bear with us. We're not trying to be, we do make changes as much as we can, but we now are in a transitional period between Arrays and realm. And so that's kind of happening. We're not like updating arrays as much as we were. I just also with the, I already mentioned this, but we've been making changes and improvements, with the bank accounts. We're making sure we have enough signers that have the right kind of authority, and that, we have enough people who are like literally close enough to the office so that if there's an emergency check, they can come sign it, all sorts of things like that. So that's been helping a lot, just to, kind of have a good representation of people to make decisions. And then some, there are approval limits. So certain amounts obviously will need more than one signer. So we're doing that. And the last piece, I guess, of the finance would be that I handle the lease for the Westchester office. So when we need to make changes or negotiate or make a little addendum or whatever we need to do, I do that. And, I was doing that for the other offices a little bit. I have some records on them, but then I did help somewhat, with the coordination of those offices when those were closed, just with the utilities. And Terrell Murph can attest that I had to ask him, unfortunately, to go back and look in a really strange closet at the Chicago Theological Seminary to get a piece of AT&T modem so that, we didn't have to pay $150. So I had to say, Terrell, I know you're busy, but can you please go in the creepy closet again and pull out, whatever black box with wires, you see that could be AT&T's, because, I don't know where that is. So he had to do some digging and find it. So he had to do that twice for 2 different modems. They were down the hall. He wasn't even sure where they were. So there's just lots of little, little wrinkles like that, it works out okay. And we are, as I said, we are like transitioning right now, between arrays and realm, and also arrays, and it's called ACS Financials, which is aligned with realm. It's like pieces of the same company, different parts. So I've been doing training with the ACS Financials trainer, and we're not yet, producing checks from it, but we're getting everything set up. I'm getting trained, and we're learning what it can and can't do, which is pretty exciting. And so I'll actually be able to look at reports and run them and be able to answer questions faster. I won't have to go through Keith. I can, look it up myself, which will save a lot of time. And I'm sure I'll understand, more of the big picture and the medium picture, So let's see. I mentioned I've been working with Bob Poor as the head of FAB. He's been a really big help. And I've been working with Christine Maselli as the new treasurer. So thank you, Christina, welcome. And of course, I want to acknowledge, Ernie Potter's service as the treasurer. And I told Ernie that his voice is in my head, and that, I think he was a good first treasurer because, he is firm and he has definite ideas, and he taught me a lot of things. So, you don't have a more thorough person than Ernie. You just don't. So sometimes I would just sit there and just listen to him. And, I don't know how much I fully understood, but, it was good to hear reasoning about why, what he thinks is important and why he wanted to do things a certain way, And sometimes Ernie and Larry would get into a discussion about, like accounting principles or something. And I would be sitting there and I think, I don't know if I'm supposed to leave the room or take notes or what's happening right now, So sometimes I would soak it in, and sometimes I excuse myself and say, I think I'm done right now. I don't know. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If you want either of these 2 PDFs or both, for yourself to fill out and use, I can send those to you. My email is my first name, Lynn, and then my full last name, CHINDLUND @ilucc.org. I don't have a certain extension at the office. We don't really have extensions, so the main line is fine. And I'm here to help you. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to mention, whoops. I do have examples of things that if you call up or you email, things I can do for you. Okay, so one thing is if you're having an event and you need a certificate of liability insurance, I can get that for you. It will probably take up to maybe a week. It kind of depends on what we're doing. I do ask you for a lot of details about, say how many volunteers will be there, the date, all sorts of things. And then we have a 1-page liability certificate that we get through our insurance company, and I send that to you. And then you have that for whoever wanted it, and sometimes we exchange, it's like a standoff, and it's like everybody has their own insurance. So that's good. I can also request corrections, of past donation discrepancies. If you get an acknowledgement letter and you say, this doesn't look right, this doesn't match our accounting, I can take that information, and it will take several days, but I will get back to you and we'll figure out what happened. Let's see, I can answer, like I said, all sorts of information about how to donate to the conference. Another way to donate to the conference is through Vanco, which you can use your bank account or you can use a credit card. So I know some about Vanco. I can help you set up an account with that if you want to. There are recurring donations you can set up, or one time, and you can say where you want it to go. You can say if it's yourself donating, or if you're donating as representative of your congregation, whatever you need to do. And then I look at reports, and that's been really helpful, especially when we had the medical debt relief project going on. A lot of folks chose to donate that way, and it was really nice. So that, just kind of happens without me, but, I monitor it, I guess I should say. I think that's about it. I mean, I can answer a lot of other questions. If you call me up, I will definitely try. I have a background in special libraries, which means, like corporate and legal libraries, so not public. And a lot of times I was the front desk person, not like reference, but like, kind of like an assistant. So a lot of times I was like performing triage, somebody would walk in and they'd say, I need something. And then I was the first person to figure out, where to direct them. So it's hard for me to let go of that. So I try not to get into, projects that are not my thing, but I really like to help people find information. And I also worked for attorneys for about 10 years. And I kept saying I was never going to go back to it. And then I would go back, but I'm really done now. So I think the only vestige of my legal days now is that I'm a notary. I guess that's pretty much it, and that I can, I don't know, I can understand legal documents to some degree, I guess. I think that's about it. Do people have questions?
The other thing is Lynn often will back up Naomi on answering the phone. So it's not uncommon to get to Lynn when you call into the office. And she is learning every day more and more what the answers are to the various kinds of questions that come into the conference office. Ken, I see your hand up.
There, unmute myself. A couple questions, Lynn. Number one, you showed a check form and a remittance form. If
Sure.
the local churches used that remittance form when they were sending some funding to the conference, would that help you out?
Yeah, it would. It would.
Okay.
I mean, it does save me a little bit of time, yes. And it does make clear, exactly what, you want, because say it's $100, you can split it any which way you want. You know what I mean? You can have $100 to OCWM, or you can have it to any one of these things on here, or you can write in something, so you can make it clear, what you want to do. And that helps a lot, because then I don't have to try to, maybe there's something on the memo line, maybe there isn't. Or, you called and told me, but that was 2 weeks ago and I have a little tiny note and sorry, it's not there. But most of the time, yeah, that will help me a little bit. And like I said, you don't have to know your church number. I can look that up, don't panic. Just put as much as you can on here. And, that does help me. So I would appreciate that.
Oh, great. So send both of those to me and I'll make sure the staff gets them.
Okay, great. Do you want to give me your email
Yeah,
now?
I'll send my email up to you so we
Okay,
don't waste
thank
time
you.
here.
Okay, great. I'll do that.
Second question was,
Yes.
you're in charge of personnel files for all employees. Does that include employees at the local church level?
No,
Okay.
no. So just former, current and former conference employees.
Okay.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't keep a very, it's a little bit spotty with the camp employees just because they have some seasonal employees. So, we get them started and I have the legal, I have the tax and legal stuff, but I don't necessarily have, really full folders on them. But yeah, and then on the contracted people we have, they have their own files with the contract in there and so on. So I have people separated in that way. And then we have, going back, I'm not sure how many years, we have former employees also.
Ken, we do keep clergy files in the conference office, but those fall under Naomi's purview for the most part. And they're almost only updated either when the Committee on Ministry does an information review or when there's a pastoral transition. There isn't a lot that we store in between. We tend to put letters of call, that sort of information, and keep those things in our files. You have question number 3? Okay, you're good. Dave Knicker.
Yes, I have a hunch that it's difficult to keep track of church treasurers, who they are and so forth in terms of sending information to the conference. I would think it would be a wise thing to do to annually at least send an instruction sheet and a copy of that form for sending donations or remittances to the lockbox. I probably would guess that probably a lot of that would clarify some of these checks come without the clear designation.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Thank you. I know, because I mean, how would you know that we created a new form? You're not going to know that. And it's new and improved and you can fill it out online. You're not going to know that. So Sarah Lorbach is really, really good at making forms. So any one of us can just scribble something on a piece of paper and then she just makes it magical and she makes it happen. So, and she makes the fields fillable, and so it's very helpful. Was there somebody else?
Tracy.
Oh, Tracy.
Yeah, I just had a question about the camp employees.
Yes.
But so you keep personnel records though on our permanent employees?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I do have ones for your seasonal too. It's just, I don't necessarily know who's going to come back. I don't get rid of anything. And, obviously we go through the payroll process, but
Right,
I
so
just don't have, I just don't have like everything, Obviously I'm not going to have necessarily, if there's a summer person, I'm not necessarily going to have, I don't know.
No. Yeah, not for
Or
seasonal.
something else. Yeah.
Right. But
No, I
just
have ones for
for
everybody. Oh yeah.
For permanent you have. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on something that I think Molly kind of talking on Naomi had made reference to. And that is, I found it interesting when you talked about coordinating with the other office staff. And just
Yes.
given that the office staff currently has fairly new and fairly distinct job descriptions, I was just wondering how that coordination is going, how, given those fairly distinct job operations, how you work as a unit, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So Naomi has, she's been with the conference since, I believe 1994. So she has a wealth of, institutional knowledge, that I do not have. So she's a great source of information about, just everybody and, most everything. And then Sarah Lorbach started right around the same time I did, and she does communications and IT. And, with Molly, we have a weekly staff meeting. I think we communicate pretty well. We're on, the same page about what our goals are. And we do back each other up somewhat, as much as we can, and with our special projects we coordinate. But yeah, it's kind of, it's tricky to learn your own job and then try also to cross train at the exact same time, but I think we each have enough of an idea that when Naomi's out and someone does ask a question, I'll say, let me know what you need. You know what I mean? I'm not sure what my success rate is, but I can definitely do a little bit of digging, and Sarah's the same way. We can figure it out. And Sarah has a lot of also institutional knowledge, And so, between the three of us, we can address, most problems, but I don't know how to like really, I don't know how to quantify but we gel really well together and we support each other. And, I think it's a really strong team. We each bring different things to the table.
Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. Obviously, I'm new on the staff, and as a person who was in a local church until just recently, I do think the idea of sending the remittance form, even to, I mean, I know our data is not perfect, but just to like the main email address of the church administrator so they can get it to the treasurer sounds like drastically help on the conference and direct giving to the right places. So I totally support that idea for those who aren't on this call, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I want to say as a new member of the conference staff is just, I think our staff is dynamite. And I just went through onboarding and training and with Sarah got assigned my laptop and my phone and helped with tech. And with Lynn did all kinds of onboarding around, transfer of benefits and this car that I have and how to fill out the check reimbursement. I don't have a credit card yet, but really I have experienced a high level of professionalism and just delightful to work with you, Lynn.
Thank you.
You just are so on top of things.
I'm trying.
I have a special folder for all my car documents and I have this other folder for all my other documents. Very organized and it's been a joy. So
I did have to onboard myself. So I got to experiment on myself on Sarah. We were like the guinea pigs. And then, you develop these checklists, and you say not every person needs, all these details, and I got to this point where I was thinking, oh, I'm going to take them on a tour. I'm going to do all these things. And, a lot of these things just happen organically. You don't need a checklist for everything. But
right.
I think just, it triggers your memory, and I'm glad that you thought it was smooth.
Yeah, I do think it's smooth. And also want to give a shout out to Naomi because we're learning to work together and working on more things and just feel great about the whole operation.
Good.
So
Good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Catherine?
And of course, now I have to not only find my mute, but I have to figure out how to take my hand down. Lower hand, there we go. We were talking a couple of steps back about trying to get updated information for the local churches, better understandings of maybe who the treasurers are for Lynn's particular pieces and whatever. And I just want to say that especially since the Fox Valley Association was trying a couple of years ago, some of you know Sinclair Gallagher, and she can be a real effective bulldog on trying to get some things. And she was trying desperately to get this information out of the churches. And we need to work on our cultural identities because even from the association level, there was some very interesting pushback on letting the churches know, or letting the conference or the association know anything about anybody other than maybe a main email address and maybe, the pastor's contact information. I don't know where that's coming from in the history of our churches, but there was real pushback about sharing any additional information. I don't know whether it's the volunteers saying, I volunteered to work with you guys, but I don't know these other people and I don't want anything to do with that, or what it is, but we need to work on that as a culture. So we need maybe just a reminder to those of us who are in the local church parish to be proactive about that there's good reasons that the conference and the associations need this information from us. And if you happen to get, something that's a generic email, whatever, if it's not for you, don't just dump it. Please pass it along to the pastor or pass it along to the appropriate staff person. But I know if we can get that more updated, I know how helpful it would be to the conference staff and the associations for that matter too, as we begin to blend those databases. But maybe just don't be surprised at what kind of pushback we get, but also it's just one of those things we need to be working on, and we need to help people understand why it's a really good reason for the organization as a whole to have this information and try to promote that being provided. So I'll be holding that one in prayer.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think a lot of it is, especially with new people, building trust and, showing that we follow through on what we say we're going to do, and just, I don't know, doing the best we can. And the more information you give us, the more we can help you. Otherwise, I'm trying to rack my brain about, like, what would Naomi say? What would Naomi do? She already has that, and I have to build my little mini database up here. But a lot of it is also, I need to know what the right questions are, what information I need. But yeah, definitely that's something that, I hope people could be a little more open. That would be nice. When somebody calls us up,
we
I
can
try
be
to
proactive. We
Right,
can
that would
hopefully
be
be
nice.
proactive about
That would
helping
help.
from our side of things.
Sure. And I mean, we're never, I don't think the three of us, we're not the kind of people that are like, that's not my job. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna, I'm not listening to you, and the way I am, I'll take a message from Naomi, and she might get annoyed with me because I might like start digging into it. I'm thinking, okay, I need to be doing something else, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to spend 5 minutes, looking at what this is. Then I'll give it to Naomi. Sometimes I take it back off her desk and I say, oh, I just did that. Okay. So maybe I need to work on that. But yeah, I think we're all aligned, and I do think it would be, if the local churches would help us out, that's why we're here. And yeah, we don't know what's going on at the local level necessarily all the time. And how fast things can change. So we appreciate it when we get a phone call or an email and just a heads up, address change, anything.
Carol.
I just want to add another positive note. 2 summers ago, the summer of 2020, I was asked to go in and look at the personnel files, and say I was appalled at what was there wouldn't be right. I was appalled at what wasn't there. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I kept looking through, and I was amazed. I thought, how are we functioning? And I had thought at that point, something I've said a couple of times, that the Apostle Paul should have said, anal retentiveness is a spiritual gift that is needed. And so when I met with Lynn about a month after she started, and she showed me the files, and I almost started dancing out of her office. I was just like, hallelujah. We've been needing stuff like this like forever, because I was personnel chair back at the beginning of this millennia. And I was just, and when I had the chance to go through, I realized that we've been going decades of not having stuff that should have been there. So I've tried, hopefully not to, I actually have a couple of questions I still want to ask her, but I'm like, I know that with everything that's been going on, our conference staff has been so loaded, with stuff that they need to do. And the things I have are of a minor nature. So I'm just kind of biding my time, because I think we do have a very good functioning staff, and I want to see that continue. And as a personnel chair, I don't want to serve on any interview search committees if I don't have to. So Lynn, somewhere on this picture here, Sarah, the whole staff too, everybody, they're all doing a good job.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you, Carol.
I'll give you some kudos.
Thank you. And I want to also say that Keith Clark Hoyos really helped me a lot too in the beginning, because he gave me an outline of what, he thinks is important to have in a personnel file, because, I didn't really know necessarily beyond the obvious, what would be helpful in there. So yeah, that's really helped. And then especially going through the onboarding process, hopefully you start out the right way, you try to be organized, and you set aside a little bit of time for filing, and just fill in the holes where you can, the gaps, maybe in the older files somewhat.
Carol, I always remember that the Apostle Paul did say God is not the author of confusion. And I think that kind of speaks to what you're saying. And certainly speaks to what I see going on in just the emphasis on the health and operation of the office and of our new staff and our continuing staff.
Are there other questions for Lynn or for me or for the greater good?
This is a lot friendlier than I thought. I thought people were going to come at me with a lot of, like, okay, I have this chart and I need you to explain to me why, this is this way. And I was like, yeah. And, some of what we do is, go over, invoices and find weird fees that we shouldn't be paying and, mistakes they make and stuff like that. So I do, we do try to be diligent about the details. But yeah, I was a temp worker off and on for a long time, and a lot of that was for attorneys. So maybe that's where it comes from, that you have to hit the ground running. And, if you say, I'm just a temp, I'm only here for a day, a week, a month, whatever, that's not going to work. So my goal was always to be like seamless, so that some of these people, of course, did not even know who their staff was probably, and they didn't realize it was a temp, and that's fine with me. So that's kind of how I approach things, is I don't say that's not my job. And I usually say, I don't know, but I'll find out, or I'll get you to the right person. And if I say I'm going to investigate it, I'll investigate it. I don't necessarily have a really fast turnaround time. And sometimes it's a mystery to me how we're going to get from here to there, but we will do it.
So I will say that job descriptions for Lynn, Sarah, and for Naomi, as well as for Terrell, Stephanie, Kathy, and everybody.
You.
It's all of the job descriptions are more than one person's job. Each job description is more than one person's job if you have to be able to get everything done as soon as it comes across. We understand that in our work, there's ebbs and flows, and we work on church time because sometimes it takes a little while to get responses from folks. And so sometimes our staff can get really overwhelmed with how much urgency it feels for all of the many things coming across our desks, especially our support staff, I think. And just to learn a culture that there's going to be ebbs and flows, and so you can't have everything done in the moment. And so we're all working on saying, I will get back to you on that, or I don't know, but I will be happy to look into that, or that is good enough. And coming to the point of saying that something is good enough is a hard one for most of us to swallow. We want to get all the way to it, be all the way done. But I can't count as high as the number of hours Lynn has spent with AT&T combined with Comcast in trying to get, maybe throw in Verizon, and it's like a year's worth of time in like to get our bills straightened out, and to have us pay the same amount. When Sarah Lorbach gave her overview of her job, I talked about some of the ways that she's saved the conference thousands of money. Well, Lynn has too. She just has a different list of things, and her persistence with the phone company has been, I'm still getting calls from AT&T at hand because they think we still, anyway, we don't have a contract with them. But even today at our staff meeting, we were looking at the bill for the copier because we're trying to make the right decision on because we don't do the kind of copying that the conference did 10 years ago, when you all got mail and you all got printed annual celebration booklets and all sorts of print material. We don't copy like that anymore. And so we were looking at our copier and saying, Well, we had a bunch of questions about it. One of the questions was, we didn't do 900 copies this month, did we? We couldn't have done 900 copies and have it breaking down. And so now Lynn has a to do, and she is going to be calling and it will be another, you all know this, it'll be another like 6 hours of negotiations with the copying machine to work out our billing for that. And so that we have someone in the office that is looking at these things and looking at them. It's all part of our commitment to exceptional financial stewardship and transparency around our finances, and all part of what we're really deeply committed to doing. And I think it's testament, Catherine, you talk about trust, and it's part of how we are rebuilding trust. And we see that when the fruits of that, when we come in, when we almost brought in our OCWM goal was up $100,000 from 2020 to 2021. It was up $100,000, which was about 10%, which is just phenomenal, and is a testament to the growing trust that we're working to rebuild. And Lynn, you're an important part of that.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad. I mean, there's yeah, I mean, there's stressful moments and there's a lot of fun moments. And sometimes I joke that I'm becoming like, I don't know if I'm Scrooge McDuck or what's happening, but there have been times when I have to say to myself, this is not my money, but I'm acting like it's my money because I look at the bill and I'm like, why are there hidden fees? What is this? What is that? So kind of have to, stop myself sometimes and not go overboard the other way. But yeah, and I've learned so much since I've been here, and it's fascinating. There's different things going on all the time. There's lots of moving pieces, and most days are not the same. You just never know what's going to happen when you pick up the phone or something like that. So yeah, but I'm here for anything you need. And like I said, if I don't know, I will definitely find out or direct you to the right person.
I'd add in about the notion of the importance of these detail things. I remember in the process of looking at where the conference was, there was this discovery that there were properties owned but not insured, for example. I wonder whether it's possible the local churches, functioning churches, don't have insurance or the kinds of coverage they need to cover themselves, and that could reflect back to the conference at some point, depending, if there was a major loss, there could be the possibility of some coming back to the conference. And I know our polity might not permit that, but covenant policy suggests that there be some conversation between the church and the churches and the conference about those kinds of things.
Yeah, Dave, all of the ones that we found we were insuring that we didn't own, as those have been as we've transitioned those off of our insurance, careful conversations with the local church has been an important part of that. We encourage, with our polity, we encourage all of our churches to carry insurance, and we encourage the insurance board coverage because it is so much more comprehensive. You can get and better coverage for church work and church risk. It is more expensive than some others. And so I realized the reason to choose other insurances. And we do get lawsuits. We just got Lynn calls me up at 8:30 in the morning. Molly, we just got the sheriff just got served. And it was about, we have a couple of lawsuits along this line where something happened at a local church, and the injured party is suing the church and the association and the conference and the United Church of Christ national setting and the United Church of Christ board and several other settings. And because of our polity, we do not have liability for issues happening in the local church because we don't have any authority over them. But we certainly do consult with churches about insurance and making sure that they are insured. And when we went and cleaned up our policies, we paid very careful attention and were engaged in those conversations. To the extent, Bob Poor's on the call, he and I were in Joliet, was that just last week?
Yes.
Because we knew we had financial interest in this church at First United Church of Christ of Joliet. But we were hearing, the message we were hearing was that they weren't even worshiping. We were paying their insurance on a monthly basis. And we're happy to do that if there was ministry happening or any sort of purpose. We were always tied in and hearing what the conversation was. But we were getting to a point that the messages we were hearing was that so little was happening there that we needed to at least consult with our realtor and get an estimate on the value of the property. And so we could make decisions on whether we were willing to accept it and move towards selling it, because we do technically own it. But we showed up and we met Juanita. We met Juanita Rodriguez. She's a lay member of the church. And it took us about half an hour to say, nope, what can we do to support this ministry? Of course, we're going to continue paying this insurance. And we told Juanita and others that about the story about just this last year at Sauk Village, Grace UCC in Sauk Village. We've been paying their insurance for their 7 years of ministry. But they were at a point now where they could now pick up all of the costs of all of their bills. And we signed over the deed for no money. We signed the deed right over to the church. And so Grace UCC in Sauk Village is so effusive in their appreciation of receiving this property. And what a gratitude that we could hold it for that period of time and support it with the insurance as they were able to develop. And so we're looking at the same sort of arrangement now with First UCC in Joliet, and excited about the ministry that could emerge, but also knowing that there needs to be some other levels of support, some coaching, some development, some helping them become and dream of owning their own ministry, owning their ministry and getting it to a place that it can thrive, and we can maybe sign the building over to them. Even though we'll have had years and years of costs, those will be written off as bad debt. But I think that is bad debt that is good mission.
I don't know if I told you that one, Molly, how we had a call from a local suburb saying, what's going on with this property? Because, you haven't even had a water bill lately. And I thought, well, that's interesting, that I guess I'm reliable enough that they start saying, where's the check that we think about? And I thought, this is very strange that they would ask me, and so they said, I said, well, it's not being used right now. So it's like, I don't want to see a big water bill. You're not going to see anything on the meter reading, but that made me laugh, because I was like, okay, I guess they're just like, hey, what's going on? So that was just kind of funny. And I thought, okay, I don't know how they have time to, go investigating these things, but I think things have become smoother. I mean, as far as just, reliability, and that, we're not in these pickles, that people know, we're going to pay on time, and we're exactly aware of what we're paying for. And I think, building better relationships with some of the, I've gotten to know the insurance agent and some of the vendors, and I think that helps a lot. So.
Well, Lynn, I want to thank you for sharing your job and your responsibilities with us, and your gifts in this position. Next week, we meet again for our Wednesday all conference chat, and it is the 4th Wednesday, which means it is a conference update. And we'll talk some about finances. We'll talk about some things that are going on at our camps, sort of a variety of mishmash of things. We'll give an update on the ACM transitions and and where those are standing and how that is unfolding. And just to bring your questions. We're always open to your questions. So with that, I wish you a blessed day. I pray for your safety tomorrow. I know we're dealing with winter weather starting tomorrow. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not, that the rain today will be melting all of everything that's currently on the ground. But we'll be getting new stuff on the ground tomorrow. And I pray for everybody's safety and good health. So blessings to you all. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.